Something tells me about that Lubbo's design. It almost inspires Patrick Star from SpongeBob SquarePants TV series. I don't know about you, but I'm guessing it's probably because, wow, sure, it just looks like him. So, hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? And Mario, can you just not sleep in the middle of this actual recording session, please? Thank you. So anyways though, hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Duffy Duck here from the likes of the Muxy Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the Nintendo Wii/Nintendo Wii U eShop download. So, yeah, last time we did manage to able to get things started with the entire, journey by able to actually just to see the actual Mushroom Kingdom itself, and especially noticeable where we did manage to able to explore the first stage in the entire game, which is of course Sky Station Galaxy, and also we managed to beat the likes out of the forms of Pee-wee Piranha, and especially noticeable after that, then we actually meet up with Lubba, that who are able to actually just realize that we need to collect some power stars, acts out like a fuel stationary for the Starship Mario. So, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. So today for this episode is the fact that we're about to be continuing exploring through the next set of few galaxies to explore. And every once in a while though, we might as well able to actually grab more of those power stars along the way. So even then though, in fact, since we actually did explore this particular Starship Mario for the time being, I think we should probably go ahead and just step onto this little yellow thingy right there. Which even then though, not exactly sure what that does. See, even then though, let's go and step in. Alright, so apparently when you're trying to step onto that little thing right there, it will actually let the Starship Mario to activate. So this is the world map. Just point at the cursor at the destination and press A to jump into the galaxy. Like I said, the starship or the spaceship runs on energy from the power stars here. Right now, it looks like we've got enough power to go through this far. We've got to need more power stars. So let's do it for the princess and my crew. Take it away, Captain. So yeah, differently from the first game this time around though, is the fact that rather than just going through dome to dome like how it does on the first game, except now we have a full-fledged world map. So even then though, that way we can able to now traverse through any single galaxies from, you know, from that particular, destination points. So that's the thing I really loved about this game though, is the fact that I can able to actually now finally jump into whatever galaxies I ever wanted to. But for now on though, we've already access to those two galaxies at the moment, which there are, of course, Sky Station Galaxy, as well as Yoshi Star Galaxy. But much like the first game, I'm going to go for those galaxies in a chronological order, so even then though, that will save Yoshi Star Galaxy for later. But for now, let's head back into the forms of Sky Station Galaxy and just to do the second mission apparently. Because unlike the first game where you normally go through like 3 missions in each galaxies, but somehow this time around though, we actually stumbled across 2 missions during the likes of any single stages. So yeah, here we go with the second mission in the forms within Sky Station Galaxy, as well as the forms of the entire game. We have Storming the Sky Fleet. And unlike the first mission, if you couldn't tell, is the fact that I don't think they actually included the common medal, because in some missions in during the likes of in the future galaxies later on, it actually contains the common medal to begin with. So even then though, let us get into the forms of the actual mission itself, where basically we have ourselves a different music in the background, as you can tell. And in fact, the matter is though, is the fact that as you can tell, we actually bring back some of these the original or the old elements from the first game. Stuff like this little this little stretchy object right there, which just like the first game, if you shake the Wii emotes right near to them, then basically it acts out some sort of like a, the actual stretchy projectile or something, even though it's hard to explain about this kinds of stuff. So even then though, yeah. And of course, like before, if you get the one-up mushroom, then it gives you an extra life, especially noticeable of how the fact that, well, much like the first game, is the fact that the actual extra lives in this game is super generous with you. But unlike in the first game, where basically in the first game, that normally that you get yourselves extra lives several times, worth mentioning though, especially if you manage to able to add up your star bits count up to 50 or higher, then it will able to actually give you an extra lives in the process. Like, if you get like 50 star bits from the first game, you get yourselves an extra life, as well as the forms of 100. But somehow in the sequel this time around though, if you manage to collect like 50 star bits, it will no longer give you an extra lives, which is very understandable because it will make the game a little bit more, you know, harder and challenging compared to the forms of the first game this time, which I don't mind about it too much, because even then though, that once again, just like the first game, this game is super generous with you when it comes to extra lives grinding, so even then though, pretty appreciative about this kind of stuff like that. So, and also I just want to point things out right away, I do apologize with the lack of, you know, for the actual, like, the actual delay for able to actually just to do kinds of stuff like this, even for my film commentary and stuff like that, because recently I was really into with the forms of Super Mario Maker 2, which if you probably already know about that game, because we've already done the unboxing video of that particular game. So even then though, I'm really into it for this point and onwards, because even then though, that's especially noticeable during the story mode, and especially noticeable with the online play and stuff like that, including multiplayer here and there as well. So yeah, I'm really into that for this point right now, even though the fact of the matter is though, it's all this weekend, although Sonic and Pinkie Pie will definitely need to get back into Super Mario Party and doing it at some point this weekend, until eventually if the ND Cube might actually announce another Mario Party at some point. Well, I'm not exactly sure when though, but even then though, we'll find things out exponentially, so anyways, like before, we actually come across into those little, you know, different color switches, which just like before, we need to activate the yellow ones so that we can able to continue progression, and especially noticeable with how the fact that if you manage to activate all the switches, then you're able to continue. Watch out. Okay, what do you mean by that? Oh, Jesus Louise. We got ourselves new forms of these returning cosmic characters, but except this time around though, we actually now introduce into ourselves cosmic clones, where that was before when you know, Super Mario 3D Land exists, and especially noticeable with a Toad equivalent, which is essentially Mummy Me, that basically what the comic clones or the cosmic clones can do is the fact that every time in some segments, it'll follow you every time whenever you're just trying to able to get onto that current situation, and you really can't kill them unless if you're able to actually just to grab or in this case do several objectives. Like, we've already activated every single switches on that one section, and then that way the cosmic clones will be disappeared into star bits and stuff like that. So even then though, that's as far as I can really say about these guys. So even then though, and by the way, we actually come across into those the spiny or the spiky piranha plants, which in order to actually kill him is the fact that you need to use that little green stretchy object right there. So, but much like before, that you really need to be very careful of those things most of the time, because even then though, if you somehow get knocked back by that particular green stretchy object, well, once again, it gives you a knockback, and aside from that, you'll also lose star bits in the process here, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so we're pretty much done with this mission, and we got ourselves 2 power stars in the process, and as well as the forms of several star bits every once in a while, though. Wish I could give you more help than I just cheering from the sidelines. You know, a friend with another Wii remote can join up with you, then one of my co-op Lumas can be trust. But they help you take down enemies and get you some extra star bits. So, if you really want to get your partner with you, then obviously, basically, once again, just like the first game, it does have a 2-player mode and stuff like that, where basically it functions the same thing for how it does it on the original game, but except the fact that the biggest difference is here, is the fact that you can now able to take control of this orange Luma. So even then, though, that makes it purely obvious, which I'm probably not going to show that off until the extra video. So even then, though, or in this case, towards at the very end of this Let's Play for the time. So, anyway, so let's head into the forms of the new stage in this game, in this case by the forms of the second galaxy in the game, which is Yoshi Star Galaxy. So what do we get for this mission entirely, though? So even then, though, let's just double check on the new parts right there. Settle up with Yoshi. And another thing I'm very glad about this is the fact that you can now able to actually select any kinds of menus, including the file selection screen with the directional pad or the control stick, which thank God, because getting back into the forms of the original game can get pretty difficult at points, especially because, well, because the thing is the fact that if you really want to select the mission in the original game, you need to purposely try to able to actually point at the Wii remote at the screen, and then able to actually select the mission you want. And then in the forms of in the sequel, which thankfully it does manage to fix that to me though, and that way I can able to actually now finally use the analog stick, or in this case by the forms of the control stick, or even a directional pad until I'm able to finally select the missions as much as I wanted to. Yoshi hatched from the egg. You saved me. I was trying to save my friends, but then I got turned into an egg and trapped. I know, we should team up. Come on, hop in my bag. So yeah, we have ourselves another returning staple from not just buddy forms within Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, but it's also in Super Mario Sunshine as well, where basically Yoshi makes a return as a playable debut. So even then, I'm very glad that Yoshi was a thing in the sequel though, because even then though, since when this game was first announced, as I said before, during the likes of in E3 2009, which I can't even believe is about a decade ago right now. In fact, speaking of such, that one thing I forgot to mention is the fact that if you couldn't tell with the forms of the title screen from the likes of in the previous video, is that obviously this game did first came out in 2010, but imagine about this, right? Until next year in 2020, this game will practically be a decade old, which I can't believe time really does fly for this point, and especially noticeable with how the fact that, well, during in 2017, we've already had the game of Super Mario Galaxy, which already came out about a decade ago, back in 2017, but now we have Super Mario Galaxy 2 a decade ago, until when it gets to the point until next year, which is specifically in 2020, so even then though, I just still cannot even believe that that'll be the case though, for that, you know, a decade ago releases for that particular part. And that could be the same applies as well for, you know, Nintendo DSi XL releases on the English countries, or especially noticeable with, well, for English versions of that particular, model and stuff. So, but I digress. So how it works for Yoshi in this game? Well, unlike in Super Mario Sunshine, you don't need to worry about, like, collecting the fruit juices in order to actually just let him live. But I'm very glad about that, because he forms within, oh crap. It's hard to able to get back into him sometimes, though. But anyways, though, yeah, how it works for Yoshi, it plays almost exactly like how it did on the forms within, you know, if you remember from Super Mario World in a 2D platformer, and especially noticeable with Super Mario Sunshine, although I said this before, you don't need to worry about the forms of able to actually collect those, any kinds of fruits to able to make Yoshi survive from that particular point. So even then though, it's going back into the forms of the original roots from the likes of in the Super Mario World style. So even then though, basically you can able to use the pointer to able to not only just trying to able to get some star bits, you can see right there, but you can also use the Wii pointer, as you can see right there, to able to actually use as the Yoshi's tongue ability. So even then though, let's see what we can get inside of this particular chance cubes, and we got ourselves a 1-up mushroom. So how about that? So I will admit though right away is that I do apologize if my voice has actually gone a little bit more, you know, croaked up every now and then, because even then though, I did manage to drink some of my juices once in a while though, especially noticeable how the fact that once again the weather today is actually ridiculously hot. So anyways though, one thing to keep in mind is the fact that with the forms within Yoshi in this game, you can, of course you can still able to use the flutter jump in this game, which you know, it's still a thing, and especially noticeable of how the fact that you can also just manage to use the tongue to able to not only eat up some of these little prickly objects, as you can see right there, but it's also the fact the matter is though, is that much like in Super Mario World and stuff like that, and heck, even with the forms within, well, specifically in Super Mario World, where basically you can also just manage to use your tongue to able to eat enemies. So even then, though, that's as far as I can say about it. Although it no longer able to actually allows you to have Yoshi's eggs, though, unlike in Yoshi's Island Super Mario World 2. But even then, though, that's pretty obvious because Yoshi has his own series on, you know, for the actual 2D platform and stuff like that. So yeah, you probably get the idea. So anyways, though, as far as Yoshi's usefulness, as far as I'm concerned with this game, is actually really handy because it comes in very handy during the likes of in the later missions, especially specifically in the later missions, especially noticeable in this mission entirely. So even then, though, you can also just manage to use. I'll take a notice from the swinging whip thingy from Super Castlevania 4, where Simon, you managed to able to actually swing onto these little tigers and stuff while simply just using his whip. It's kind of like that, but except the fact that we're not exploring the actual castle darkness or anything like that, and plus we are not the Bill mod, we're just a Italian plumber, especially noticeable we have ourselves a good old pal dinosaur, managed to able to actually just, you know. So, because despite in the first game that, although technically speaking, generally in the first game, that, it does have Yoshi as a cameo appearances, well, for most notably on the file selection screen, and especially noticeable with the forms of the Yoshi's Unexpected Appearance mission on that Space Junk Galaxy on that secret mission. So, although, conveniently enough though, I'm very happy that Yoshi becomes a fully playable in a sequel for that matter. So there we go. So now we got ourselves 3 power stars and 2 common medals so far, and we got 574 star bits, which just like the first game, by the way, I'll be able to actually collect in the amount of star bits I can get. Say, I don't mean to pray or anything, but what is that thing over there? I mean, be straight with me, pal. You hatching alien eggs now. Haha. Or generally speaking though, Lubba, he's not an alien after all. He was a dinosaur, for goodness sake. Anyways though, so obviously you can enable to actually use Yoshi in during the likes of in a mini hub world of any sort, which is pretty a nice feature. But as you can tell right there, I'm always able to actually do this strategy every time whenever I, not only just for the sake of doing this as the actual Let's Play channel and stuff like that, but it's also I managed to do this on my own time too. Because of this though, I always able to go after any single of those star bits as much as I could. Which, yes, I say that is because just like the Super Mario Galaxy, is the fact that I'm actually going to be going after every single of those, well, not all of them per se, but some of these star bits entirely of, you know, for any kinds of missions coming up. So even then, though, let's head back onto Yoshi's Star Galaxy and do the next mission, which is Spiny Control. And then from here, we can able to utilize the actual spiny shells in this particular game, because even then, despite the fact that I suppose I might be wrong, but I'm guessing they aren't here on the first game. So yeah, you probably get the idea. And speaking of which, actually, is the fact that unlike the first game, in some galaxies anyway though, that specifically in the first level in the between these two duality adventures, well, as far as I've noticed, is that in a Good Egg Galaxy from the first game, that usually it just usually takes place in somewhat of a nighttime setting or something like that, and during its space. But I just realized in the Sky Station Galaxy, it was actually performs of like, I would say a combination of both like daytime setting or the nighttime setting, although I may be wrong again, but even then though, let me know in the comments below. So even then though, you probably get the idea for that. Of course, CapKing74 did manage to did this Let's Play as well, but he only did done the first half of the game, which I will admit though right away, I'm not going to spoil things too much about it, because even then though, oh really? Geez, Spiny, you really just trying to frighten me, frightening out of nowhere towards me. Anyways though. So yeah, you can be able to actually use the spiny shells to able to use them as projectiles of all things, which in order to actually do that is that you need to ride Yoshi at all times. So even then though, and you can also manage to eat some of these fruits if you wanted to, just like the likes of how it does it in, you know, in Super Mario World and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, because as far as I'm aware, this game did came out exactly for about, I would say this game came out after New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and I'm consecutively, before Super Mario 3D Land exists on the phones of the 3DS hardware. So even then though, generally speaking, that this is usually calls it the last, or in this case, the final Mario adventure on the actual Nintendo Wii console. Well, not the true final Wii game from the Mario game, because that honor goes to Mario Party 9, because even then, that just usually moves on to, you know, the next generation of consoles, which is specifically, well, for the 3DS, for handheld, and especially noticeable with, the Wii U, which, you know, as far as I've already noticed about that time. So, speaking of the Wii U, actually, is the fact that this game was actually the first of the Wii downloadable versions of the game that usually comes out on the actual Nintendo Wii U system. So even then, though, it's a little bit odd to able to actually add in Super Mario Galaxy 2 first before Super Mario Galaxy 1, able to get ourselves a chance to get ourselves a downloadable version of the game, which is kind of odd, because I have no idea how do I explain that, because even then though, although I don't really mind about it too much, because this is actually still one of my favorite Nintendo Wii games of all time, even though some people seem to able to compare to the first game, which some people seem to think this game is great, but I honestly kind of think about it, that's entirely up to me in my opinion, because even then though, this game is so amazing, and it's perfect in every way in my opinion, because even then, we'll explain more details onto that whenever we get to that, you know, the latest portion of the game. So for now, we actually stumbled across the next boss fight in the entire game for Super Mario Galaxy 2, so let's see what we got this time. Gotta think about it, this boss does remind me of that one particular boss fight as you normally fight from World 7 in New Super Mario Bros. DS, where basically that usually you have to take down the Lakitu Thunder, if I remember correctly, for that particular boss's name, even though it's been such a quite long time since I actually managed to play New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. I think last time we played that was actually by the forms of a redo Let's Play of that game on the Wii U eShop downloadable virtual console version. So, that's pretty surprising all in all. So, anyway though, so this entire boss fight, it's all about adjusting your aiming skills with all this, you know, the spiny shell tossing, stuff like this. Because in order to actually decide to able to hit him, well, basically, we need to toss the actual spiny shell right back at him. So, even though if you time your shots well enough, then you'll basically go down in a simple swell. But it can get pretty tricky though, especially noticeable on the third and final phase, because a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble on the third and final phase, because most of the time you're able to actually miss these little aiming shots so easily though. But as long as you're able to wait for a few seconds and then trying to aim it from exactly the right spot, then you would able to deal with him no problem. And in fact, I like that actually. So anyways though, I believe this boss fight was named, it was actually Giga Lakitu, because he was actually a lot bigger than the forms of how it does it on the normal versions of the Lakitus themselves, which, going to think about it though, the Lakitus did not appear on the first game at all, so I found it a little bit odd, admittedly, but hey, at least we did manage to kick you know, Giga Lakitu's butt, no problem. So, anyways though, we got 4 power stars so far, and I think it seems to say that we are basically done for Sky Station Galaxy, as well as Yoshi Star Galaxy for now on though, because again, I'll mention more on that later, until whenever we, you know, continue proceeding for the actual Let's Play itself. So, anyways though, so now we can able to advance to the next route right there. So yes, much like the first game, in order to actually continue proceeding to the actual world, we need to keep on collecting those power stars, obviously. So, and there's something, excuse me, there's something returning from the forms of how it does it on the first game. We have ourselves the returning of those hungry Lumas, where basically it plays out exactly the same function as of how it does it on the first game, but again, I'll mention more on that until, excuse me, I really do sigh about this point, folks, because I just somehow keep on belching most of the time, which I know is incredibly disgusting, but still, it just feels kind of distracting me while I was doing commentary. So anyways, so let's move on to the forms of the next stage, which in this case, Spin Dig Galaxy. And the first mission we're going to get into is the Digolex Planet. So, and before we're able to mention more about the forms of this particular mission, I believe we're able to actually introduce into ourselves the first power-up item, which is, you got a spin drill, shake the Wii remote to start drilling. So, yeah, this is before when the Yellow Wisp exists on the forms of Sonic Colors, especially noticeable in Sonic Lost World, where basically what the spin drill can do is the fact that you can able to drill from the ground. So even then though, I found it a very nifty item, or a power-up I should say, but normally I just generally call this an item per se, because well, despite the fact that you can able to actually use that from anywhere else, but even then though, what you can do with it is the fact that obviously you can able to actually dig for the ground or drill from the ground. So even then though, although it doesn't act out as a time limit thing, unlike the forms of how it does it on Sonic Colors, especially noticeable in Sonic Lost World, in you know, the Yellow Drill Wisp. So even then though, that's as far as I can say about this for this point. Now, of course, we can never forget the common medal, which is very simple to get. So even then, though, and as to be expected at this point, not only do we need to able to, well, not only farm those little star bits and what have you, but also, much like in the previous 3D Mario sets of Let's Plays, including next year's Super Mario Sunshine redo Let's Play at some point in 2020, I'm going to be going for 100% completion of the game, excluding, you know, all of the power stars, and especially noticeable with every single common medal. So even then, I'm also able to try my best if I'm able to, you know, essentially trying to collect them all, which is definitely possible for certain Let's Plays and what have you. So, but I digress. So let's go ahead and get the Rainbow Star before you're able to actually farm even more of those star bits as a result, which in this case that will happen every single time in every single Super Mario Galaxy games, specifically for Galaxy 1 and especially with Galaxy 2. So yeah, you probably get the idea for that solution. So I think one thing to keep in mind is the fact that for those of you who lived in UK, especially noticeable with Japan, and I believe Australia as well, you get yourselves a special little gift if you managed to first brought the game, and that was the forms of a freebie DVD tutorial thing, which basically, it might be seems kind of worthless to me though, because since I've already played the first game in the series, of course, or the first game anyway, then I already know about the forms of every single stuff. But for those of you who have not experienced the first game yet, this will be a very good thing for you, for those of you who haven't played the first game yet. So, but however though, unlike in the American version though, the American version doesn't get anything, because even then though, it's kind of like the same thing for how it does it on you know, the most recent Mario game, which usually comes out during about 3 days ago potentially, which is of course Super Mario Maker 2, where basically Japan owners, and especially noticeable with the UK owners, and I'm pretty sure the Australia versions as well, which fundamentally though, it does manage to give you a stylus and stuff, so yeah. It's you, Mario, right? Like our ship, it's called a Star Shroom. We're shuffling off soon. Oh yeah, I forgot to introduce myself. I found this nifty headlamp, so I am now the Toad Brigade Captain. There's a pretty scary monster just past here, be careful. So yeah, I wonder who that could be, I wonder, because even then though, I might be curious about this. So even then though, you can also manage to use the star bits on that little Hungry Luma shop, where just like before, you can able to choose between either the Life Shroom, or in this case the 1-Up Mushroom, or the Life Shroom if you really want to call it that. So, well, this guy looks very similar to the forms of Mega Leg from the first game, even though I like to able to call him the Mega Leg's cousin, because from the look of him, he looks incredibly similar, but except the fact that now, we have ourselves another new boss fight in this game, which basically calls it Digger Leg, which means the entire battle usually takes place in somewhat of a 2D part, and basically all we need to do in this particular boss fight is very simple. We need to, what the hell? Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but anywho. So, yeah, for this entire boss fight, this is where the actual spin drill comes in, and that was the fact that we need to able to drill right at the forms of that glass container, because, well, we're no longer going to be able to be using the bullet bills for the time, because obviously we did manage to deal with, you know, Mega Leg from the first game, so even then, well, from both Mario and Luigi's perspective right there, so, okay, so here's my tip right there. Use that as soon as you're able to start spewing out those enemies from the bottom. So yeah, I just want to keep that in mind. And also, if you get crushed to this guy, well, obviously it's instant death. So, you know, just like in any other all sorts of enemies from the past. So even though, oh, really? Oh, that was a really bad timing for my part. So, yeah, it can get pretty stingy at times, even with the timing aspect. But apart from that, though, if you drill at him for about 3 times, then, well, he's toast. And of course, we're able to meet up with him again until at some point later on. But even then, though, again, I'm not going to mention about this too much until later on. So, anyways, though, so let's go and spin drill from here, and we can able to obtain the 5th power star in this entire game so far. So, naturally speaking, that, yeah, we actually did this pretty swell, if you ask me. So, and somehow we ended up in this particular section right here, which I could assuming this might be something related to news and all that stuff. So, anyways, though, so we got 3 of those common medals so far, and especially noticeable with, 807 star bits so far, so that's pretty swell if you ask me, and especially noticeable we've actually now access to those 2 new galaxies as a result. Oh, one of my little guys is back. I was wondering what happened to the little fella after he fell off. He built a ship to get back. Huh. That's my crew for ya. Huh? Those guys are all friends of yours, right? If you ever want to visit that ship, you can get there with the warp pad. So just like the first game, you can able to actually use the warp pad to able to actually just meet up with the Toad Brigade and stuff like that, or the Toad Brigade captain. Like, even then though, there's only one warp pad in this particular hub world this time, because as the forms of the first game, it does have, you know, a multitude of warp pads, just for the sake of the forms of, like, exploring the actual Comet Observatory for the majority of the time. So even then though, I guess there's not much else I can really say about this point. I'm gonna have to be brutally honest with this point, guys, because even then though, I already explained about the fact of how this game actually plays out to be, and of course that every time when it's like the beginning of this video, and especially noticeable in the very end of this episode, I always attempt to able to go after those star bits for the sake of like farming those particular stuff, because again, super useful until when it gets to a point until later on though, and especially for the actual coin stack, as we did manage to collect those during in some of these missions anyway though, which I think I'll explain more on that until, you know, for the next video, because until then, I'm afraid to say guys, we gotta end things off here, so join me next time at Let's Play Super Mario Galaxy 2. Here's the fact that we're still about to be collecting more of those power stars along the way, and especially noticeable in exploring more galaxies, so see you guys then. Later fellas.